Nashalakaya chakshurunmilitam yena tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Namashrishtham Manum Api Shachiputramatra Swarupam Rupam Tasyagrajam Urupurim Maturim Goshtavartim Radha Kundam Girivaramaho Radhika Madhava Samprapto Yasya Pratita Kripaya Shri Gurum Tam Natosmi Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Ataf Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavangscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathan Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhan Vitamscha Guru Vaishnav Bhagavan Tine Smarane Hoy Bigna Binashan Anayashe Hoy Nijavan Chita Puran Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. I don't usually drink at this time, but it dried up. Yeah. Yeah, take the cover off. Just a little. Okay, that's a bit of stuff. Finished. Sri VIshnusahasranama, name 921 is Vita Bhaya. Anyone know what this is? From Bhagavad Gita. Vita Raga Bhaya Krodha. Yeah. Means, yeah, in Bhagavad Gita, Krishna speaks of the self-realized person as without attachment, fear, and anger. So these are the defining characteristics of, or symptoms of material life. Symptoms, yeah. The characteristic is forgetting Krishna, and it manifests as attachment, fear, anger, and so many other undesirable qualities. But Krishna is Vita Bhaya, without fear. He's not of the material world, therefore he is not influenced by the qualities of the material world, and that can be analyzed in so many ways, but a prominent way to analyze it is that he is devoid of any fear. And why should he be? If he is, means he is supreme. He is unassailable. It's not like in Christian and Islamic mythology that there's some Satan and God is always struggling and just manages to keep on top. But he is always unassailable. His position is eternal. He's always far above all others. He is the source of all power. Namastejas tejase. Avir bhava. So he's the source of all power. So anyone who has any power, however powerful they may be, is only borrowing a little power from him. So what is he to fear from them? They're very powerful people in the world at the present time. Who are the powerful people? The powerful politicians, maybe the leaders. Yeah, the leaders of the powerful nations, United States, Russia, China, is powerful. They have to have power to be able to sit on top of that whole power of seething human activity. But in comparison with Krishna, they can be considered like fireflies, which you can see at night. Do you have fireflies around here? Sometimes, yeah. You can notice them in the daytime. Sometimes you see them early in the morning, and you can see they're still giving out light, but it has no effect whatsoever in the presence even of the just beginning to rise sun. So it's something like that. Krishna is devoid of fear. This is the meaning of the name, because all these names can be understood in various ways. The Sanskrit can be unpacked in various ways. This meaning, he who is devoid of fear, is given by Shankaracharya and others who follow his interpretation. And of course, for us, especially as followers of Srila Prabhupada, the name Abhaya, which means the same thing, is a very important name. That's there in Bhagavad Gita also, beginning of the 16th chapter. Sri Bhagavan Uvacha, what's the first word after that? Abhayam, Abhayam, the first quality of persons situated in the divine nature that Krishna gives in the beginning of the 16th chapter, is Abhayam. Previous to this, in VIshnusahasranama, we've had the name Bhayakrit, one who makes fear. He who doesn't have fear is fearful to others. And Bhayanashana, he who destroys fear. So for the sinful, envious demons, rascals, we're not supposed to say things like that nowadays because we're being very empathetic with everyone, but there are sinful, rascal demons nevertheless. It's not good to be empathetic with everyone. Would it be a good idea to be empathetic with Hitler, for instance? What do you think? All you Jews, he is demon. So Krishna destroys fear by, there are various names which suggest that. Just like, for instance, we have a name coming up, Viraha, who kills great heroes. So he destroys fear. Simply by remembering him, he destroys fear. This is the world of fear, as stated in Srimad Bhagavatam. Bhayam dvitiya bhiniveshata syat ishada petasya viparyaya smritihi. When we enter the consciousness of duality, thinking ourselves separate from Krishna, then we enter the world of fear. We become absorbed in the atmosphere of fear due to opposite consciousness of what it should be, being envious of Krishna. So this is the world of fear, and Krishna, he is devoid of fear, even when he comes to this world. Another upcoming name is still to come in VIshnusahasranama, Bhayapaha. It's similar to Bhayanashana. Very suitable to speak this name here in the temple of Narasimhadev, who is certainly fearless. Everyone feared Hiranyakashipu. Everyone, with very few exceptions. One of them being Prahlad. He wasn't afraid. Brahma, it's stated in Bhagavatam as if Brahma, he wasn't afraid, but he couldn't pacify Nrsimhadev. And Lord Shiva said to him, it's not the time for the destruction of the universe yet, so that's for me to do. So you're a devotee of Shiva, is it? No. just look a little bit like some of them. Didn't shave your head yet. Well, we can help you with that if you like. You're afraid? Yeah, you see. So Krishna is afraid of fear. He's fear for the fearful, and he's devoid of fear. Nrsimhadev is fearless. He definitely wasn't afraid of Hiranyakashipu. Hiranyakashipu thought he was Vita Bhaya. I'm free of fear. No one can touch me. No one can do anything to me. But he was wrong. He calculated very intelligently, but because he was an atheist, he didn't calculate Vishnu into his calculation. So Vishnu, who is devoid of fear, as Nrsimhadev, destroyed the fearful Hiranyakashipu. Shankaracharya's interpretation, Bhayam samsarikam samsara lakshanam va asa iti vita bhayaha sarveshvaratvat nitya muktatvat cha. He has no fear pertaining to this world of transmigration. Most people in this world also aren't afraid. That's their foolishness. People are not afraid of repeated birth because they're foolish. But they don't consider how much suffering is there in repeated birth and death. But he is free of that fear, not out of foolishness, but because he's beyond the position of being born and reborn again. Also, Sarveshvaratvat Nitya Muktatvacha. He's eternally the Lord of everyone and everything. He's eternally in a liberated position. He doesn't have to strive for liberation. Therefore, he is constitutionally, or ontologically, if we want to use a fancy word, without any fear. Following his commentary, sub-commentator on Shankara, Radha Krishna Shastri, says that the worst of all fears is the fear of repeated birth. Srila Prabhupada also comments like that. And because Bhagavan is beyond the fear of rebirth, therefore he can be called Vita Bhaya. And even the Dvaita commentator, Satyasanda Tirtha in the Madhva Sampradaya, he also gives an explanation, just very simple. Bhaya shunya vita bhaya. One who is devoid of any fear is called Vita Bhaya. Fear being the nature or a major characteristic of material existence, that is to be overcome by us who are in material existence. Vishnu, is eternally free of all fear. What is the nature of fear? Bhartrihari, a 5th century philosopher, poet, grammarian, and originally he was a great enjoyer as a king. So at that time he wrote the Shringar Shatakam, 10 verses glorifying sex, more or less. And then later he became renounced. There's a whole story of how he became renounced. And then he wrote Vairagya Shatakam. These are among his works. 100 verses about Vairagya, renunciation. So in there he describes the 9 types of fear. So he's describing how we should be renounced from this world. Good reasons to be renounced from this world. So he states, Bhoge Roga Bhayam. In enjoyment of this world, there is the fear of disease. The tendency is that as we enjoy this world, the body gets more diseased, either directly or indirectly. Once Srila Prabhupada in a lecture said that someone who passes stool only once a day is a yogi. One who passes twice a day is a bhogi. And one who passes 3 times a day is a rogi. And all the devotees laughed because they thought bhogi means someone who's bogus and rogi means someone who's a rogue. But actually bhogi means a sense enjoyer and rogi means someone who is diseased. So roga bhayam, in enjoying this world, it's just the laws of nature. If we indulge in enjoyment, especially in youth, we think the body will go on forever enjoying, but then we get more diseases as we get older. So, Bhartrihari says, Kule chuti bhayam. In a family there is fear of disgrace. If we're attached to a family, now this word family has undergone various transformations of meaning in the last few years. But even when I was growing up, when we were all very good people and we didn't have so many stupid things going on, family meant nuclear family. But in the traditional cultures, it doesn't mean nuclear family. Family means extended, where there is a fear of disgrace, because if anyone in the family does something wrong, they can bring disgrace upon the whole family. And this is especially true of women, as we find in the first chapter of Bhagavad Gita. So there is always the fear of disgrace. So that's another kind of fear. Vite nri pa'alad bhayam. If you have lots of money, then we're afraid of the rulers. They'll take it away. They always need money. The taxman in the modern context. Mane dainya bhayam. In honor there is fear of humiliation. Someone who is honored always has the possibility to be humiliated. Someone who's honored has the possibility to be humiliated more. It's hard to humiliate someone who's a beggar on the street. They're already in the state of humiliation. Sambhavitasya cha kirti maranadati richate, Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita. For one who is honored, dishonor is worse than death. So Bhartrihari continues. Bale ripu bhayam. If you have power, then you're going to have enemies. So there's fear of enemies. We find also Bhartrihari as a king, he wrote Niti Shatakam, which is talking about how to rule a kingdom. We also have Niti Shastra of Chanakya. So there's a whole big section on how kings have to have spies. You can't trust anyone. Traditionally, leaders of countries, probably still going on in some places, they have someone eat their food, what they're going to eat before they eat it, because you're afraid even to eat that someone will put poison in it. So there's always, the king has to have spies, and everyone's spying on everyone else, because you can't really trust. It's very hard to trust anyone if you have power, because someone is always wanting to take your power. So in power, there's always, you may think it's very powerful, but it's a fearful position. Then, rupe jaraya bhayam. In beauty, there is fear of old age. beautiful young woman. There comes a point when she's admiring one of her favorite preoccupations, admiring herself in the mirror. Then one day she notices there's a beginning of a wrinkle. And it gets worse. Once, Tribhuvanath Prabhu, maybe you've heard his name, one of my godbrothers, he showed me a magazine in which they had two photos juxtaposed, full color. Face on the left side was Brigitte Bardot. Maybe you've heard the name. She was a iconically beautiful French film star. And it had a picture of her in her youth. Beautiful young woman. And they had a picture of her at that time, which was quite a few years later, and lines all over the face. The fate of beauty in this world. So that's a fear. Shastra, what fear is there for someone who has knowledge of Shastra? But he also says, Shastra vadi bhayam, because traditionally in Indian culture, Shastric knowledge is used to show your superiority over others. Debating competitions. So you're always afraid that someone, you see, just like Keshav Kashmiri came to Navadvip and all the Pandits of Navadvip ran away. They're afraid of him. He was called Digvijay. Digvijay Pandit. There are two kinds of Digvijay. Digvijay means he conquers over all the directions. So one is a powerful ruler who conquers all directions, and another is a great scholar. Was it Yamunacharya? He was, as a boy, there was a big scholar who was backed by the king, and he had a habit. If anyone dared to debate him, he would defeat him and then have him killed. So one time the young boy, who was later to be known as Yamunacharya, he went to debate with him. So he said, I'll give you a proposition, you refute it. So the big scholar in front of everyone said, okay, so the queen is a prostitute. What are you going to say? If you agree with it, you should refute it. Oh, he wanted to establish. No, you have to establish then. The queen is a prostitute. So if he establishes it, he's in trouble. And if he doesn't establish it, then he's defeated. So he was flummoxed. And then the boy said, you see, in the king resides Indra, Chandra, Vayu, Agni, all the demigods. So she has so many lovers. And the Pandit was defeated. That was one of the things he said. So in scriptural knowledge, then gune kalabhayam. So what should you do? You should be very virtuous, right? Just be virtuous. Develop good qualities. Be a good person. But then there's a fear of jealousy. People will criticize you. People will find out some fault. Even in a faultless person, they'll try to find some fault. Kaye kritantad bhayam. In the body there is fear of death. Just like women may like to be very beautiful, so a man like to have a big, strong, healthy body. But Kritanta is a name for death, one who makes the end. Then, what's the conclusion? Sarvam vastu bhayanvitam. In everything, wherever you look, Everything in the world is accompanied by fear, and he comes to the conclusion, Bhayanvitam bhuvi. Everything in this world is accompanied by fear, therefore, Nrinam Vairagyam eva bhayam. By renunciation, we can become fearless. And that can be taken to extremes, just like we see in the 11th canto of Bhagavatam, the Avanti Brahmana. He doesn't, or Rishabdev, or Gaur-Kishore Das Babaji Maharaj. They have no connection with this world whatsoever, so much that people will insult them. In the case of Rishabdev and the Avanti Brahmana, people would urinate on them. That much detached. Just detached. Whatever happens, just don't react. That's extreme renunciation. Of course, our philosophy is also Vairagya Vidya, renunciation accompanied by knowledge. But it is Bhakti Yoga, praising Krishna. So Krishna is automatically, there's fear in the fear in everything. But Krishna has no such fear. We see when in the story of the Syamantaka jewel, that Prasena took the Syamantaka jewel away from the city. Prasena, the brother of Satrajit. And then he didn't return. And it could have been said, well, maybe he robbed it. But instead, Satrajit spread a rumor in Dwarka that Krishna had killed Prasena because he wanted to get the jewel. And Prabhupada writes that Krishna did not like his name to be maligned. He didn't like these rumors, so he went out with a party of respectable elders from Dwarka to find out what had happened. Then they found Prasena had been killed by a lion. So Krishna, he's not afraid of anything, but he also, in this case, he wanted to protect his good name among the respectable people of Dwarka. He didn't care what demons thought about him. He simply laughed at them because so many people had so many bad things to say about Krishna. But in the residents of Dwarka who were following the Vedic principles, well, the demons also in some ways following the Vedic principles, but they're respectable devotees. He didn't want that his good name should be maligned. In his Vraja Leela, he doesn't seem to care too much for that. He does all kinds of things, especially with the gopis. Of course, it's rumored but not known, and it's never really known that he does this. It's rumored. It's not really known among others except the young gopis. But later his devotees, they explain. We find Shukdev Goswami explaining to Parikshit Maharaj, who inquires, how could Krishna do this? He came to establish religious principles. It seems that he's acting against religious principles. So it has been a concern of devotees since that time to justify Krishna. That Krishna is not immoral. There's no question of immorality in Krishna. I won't get into that now. Among all these things, in the body there is fear of death. Death should be the most frightening, because we don't know what happens after death. We do, because we take knowledge from Shastra. Materialistic people are very afraid at the time of death. Why is that? Because the Yamadutas come to get them. They become very afraid. Naturally, sinful people become afraid. So therefore, in this culture, in this Western culture, whatever that may be, there's so many things going on in Western culture, but one feature of this grossly materialistic society is that we try to ignore or downplay death, because it's promoted that we should all enjoy this world. Old age and death, they're hidden and downplayed, and it's, I don't know in this country, but it's considered impolite in the demoniac culture in which I was raised in this lifetime to even mention death. To talk about death. We cover up old age, which is the herald, the harbinger of death, by thick perfume, a thick, what is it called? Cream? Some makeup. Okay, makeup's the general term. Cosmetics. And we try to pretend that we're young and healthy and I can go on and see how strong I am at an old age. In Poland last time I was there, which was quite a long time ago, I saw an advertisement for some beer in which it showed an old man with, in one hand he had this beer, in the other hand he was doing arm wrestling with a young man, just to show this beer will make you strong, which is bogus. Beer doesn't make you strong. But there's the idea, you're strong even in your old age, but you might be, some people in old age, but the time will come, however much we want to pretend it won't. We put it off in the future. You look at these, I was talking about these powerful leaders of countries. What are the countries I mentioned? United States of America? Russia and China. They're all old men and they're going on as if they'll live forever. But they won't. In India also, old man is leading the country. As if they won't die. But in old age, someone who's intelligent should prepare for death. Actually in young age also. In every age, but especially in old age, one should prepare. So I'm speaking on this name, Vita Bhaya, one who is devoid of fear. Meditating on this name, we should consider how we should have fear. We should have fear of old age and death, and based on this fear, we should act in such a way that we become fearless by taking shelter of He who is constitutionally fearless. Medical science. There's this idea that by medicines you can increase your lifespan, and most old people are taking so many pills to try to keep them going. But it's a false, it's a pretext, it's an illusion that medical science will increase our lifespan. It's the usual thing when someone develops symptoms that they're going to die very soon, that they're rushed off to a hospital and some tubes are stuck into them and all kind of injections done, and they die anyway. What's the point? Someone's going to die and you rush them off to a hospital and try to keep them alive. Why? Better to face up to the fact that no technological advancement can stop death, nor will there ever be a time when there's some injection you can give, or pill you can give, or pipe you can stick in someone and they're going to live forever. There was an idea at one point that we have to freeze the bodies and then we'll bring them, when science will advance, and then we'll be able to bring them back to life. And Walt Disney had his body frozen in the hope that his body would be revived. I believe later on, because the relatives wanted to get his fortune, they made some court case and had the body unfrozen. Too bad, Walt. You're living in Mickey Mouse land, make-believe land, cartoon land. But the actual fact is that you have to die, and when you die, you're off to another body. Death is beyond our control. However much we may laud the advances of science, the death rate continues, 100%. So we should be afraid. On the other hand, fear, if we're too much fearful, then we can't even operate in this world. So we should have a healthy fear. It's good to be fearful in some ways. We shouldn't be so foolish that I can drive the car at 300 kilometers an hour and nothing to fear. Well, a little slip at that speed and you're highly likely to be dead the next second. So healthy fear. When we're crossing a road, we should look to see, is traffic coming? These are precautions we should take. People have a bravado. They think that I don't have to fear anything. Then government makes laws. Put on your seatbelt. They have to make a law because people think, I'm so strong, I don't need a seatbelt. But when you're traveling even at 50 kilometers an hour and you hit some other vehicle which is only going 50 kilometers an hour, then there's a good chance that if you remain alive, you wish you put on the seatbelt. So the government puts the fear, if you don't wear the seatbelt, we'll fine you €100, and that seems to them something worth fearing. And of course in Germany everyone follows the laws unquestioningly, unthinkingly. It's still like that? Probably, yeah. Especially in Bayern. Is it? Did I pronounce it properly? Okay, good. So what is the root cause of fear? That is there in Bhagavatam. Bhayam dvitiya biniveshata sat ishadapetyasya viparya smriti. Turning away from Krishna. Krishna is vita bhaya. He's without fear. And those who take shelter of him, they become fearless. Vajahure mana srinandanandana abhaya charanaravindare. We are enjoined to worship Nandanandana, Krishna, at whose lotus feet there is fearlessness. Otherwise in this material world, it's a fearful situation. Why is that? Because asatyare satya karimani. We accept that which is untrue. We accept false things as true. Now of course this could be a big discussion. Is this world false? No, but it's not fully true also. We say false because temporary. We accept the temporary as eternal. So our vision of this world as being a place for us to enjoy the illusion that we will live forever, this is the cause of fear. Because underlying, we know that we won't live forever. We have to suffer. Is the world of matter. It's temporary. And the idea that we can enjoy it is illusory. And so we're always in a state of cognitive dissonance. That we want to enjoy, but at the same time, we cannot. We cover ourselves. We embrace an illusion that we can be happy. But underlying it, there is fear, so many kinds of fear. The fear of disgrace, the fear of humiliation, the fear of death, the fear of losing our beauty, so many, 9 kinds of fear, basic kinds of fear. Of course, there are many, many, many kinds of fear, but 9 have been enumerated by Bhartrihari. Our body is made of matter. Intrinsically, just like the spiritual energy by its nature, its very nature is full of bliss. So the material nature by its very nature is full of frustration. And we try to find happiness through this body, through this mind, but we're always in the world of fear. We fear that our situation, if we have something, we fear losing it. So those 2 conditions of material life, which are not there in the self-realized person. The person who is prasannatma, he is because he is na shochati na kankshati. He's neither desiring something nor lamenting for something that he's lost. So if we have something, we're always afraid of losing it. We try to cover up our fear with so many distractions. Now, technology has provided us with literally innumerable distractions in the form of YouTube, for instance. And you say, no, you can enumerate it. It's so, how many videos on YouTube? How many? Some billion, something like this. But it's innumerable because we can't see them all. It's beyond our power to even imagine watching them all. All kinds of entertainment, and it just covers our consciousness. It diverts our consciousness away from the underlying misery and fear. I'm going to read from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 3, Chapter 26, Text 16, the purport, in which Srila Prabhupada quotes this Bhayam Dvitiya Bhiniveshata Syat. Actually, there's something in the Sanskrit there could be. Corrected. So Srila Prabhupada writes, Dvitiya refers to matter which is beyond spirit. Matter is the secondary manifestation of spirit, for matter is produced from spirit. Just as the material elements described are caused by the Supreme Lord or the Supreme Spirit, the body is also a product of the Spirit soul. Therefore the material body is called Dvitiya. Or the second. One who is absorbed in this second element or second exhibition of the spirit is afraid of death. We are spirit souls, different from, this is Srila Prabhupada. We are spirit souls different from the material body, and we belong to the eternal, blissful, spiritual world. How about that? We all belong to the eternal, blissful, spiritual world. But for some reason we have fallen into this world of matter, which is foreign to us. We've developed a spirit of independence, rebellious independence. We are averse to the service of Krishna, which we think that this rebellious attitude will make us happy, but it makes us miserable. It's like orphans. We're just on our own to fight for ourselves in every step of life. there is fear. Samarshita ye pada pallava plavang mahatmadang punya yasho marare. What's the next line? Bhavambade vatsapadang parang padang yad vipadang natesham. In this material world, there's simply fear. But at the lotus feet of Krishna, there is no fear. Otherwise, in this material world, there is danger at every step. But if we take shelter of Him, then the great ocean of material existence, it becomes like the water in a calf's hoofprint. It's so difficult to cross over material existence, like a great ocean. But crossing over the water in a calf's hoofprint, you don't even think about it. You just walk over it. It's nothing to be even considered. So how can we become Vita Bhaya? By taking shelter of Him, by taking instruction from Him. Taking shelter of Him means taking instruction from Him. Theoretical and practical. It's not really theoretical, but it's to be understood with the intelligence. When we understand that we're not this body, we don't belong in this material world, everything that we consider mine has no real relationship with me. My family, my home, my car, my identity, my position in some company, everything is temporary. It has no real existence. Then we enter the world of fearlessness. Krishna, when we understand Krishna is protecting us, then where is the fear? We surrender to Him. Bhaja Hure Mana Srinandanandana Abhaya Charana Arvindare. Krishna says, Mamekam Sharanang Raja. Ahang Twang Sarva Papebhyo Moksha Yashami Masucha. Surrender to me only. Famous verse. I will deliver you from all. Do not fear. Masuchaha. Varadaraj, the temple is there in Kanchipuram, South India. He's giving his blessing with his right hand, and written on his hand in Tamil script, Masuchaha, do not fear. If we surrender to Krishna, no fear. Of course, we find it difficult to surrender to Krishna because we're so used to being in the world of fear that we're afraid of losing our attachments. That's ironic, isn't it? That what causes us fear, we're afraid to give it up because we're so used to being in the world of fear that we fear if we give it up we'll go to something worse. So Krishna speaks the whole Bhagavad Gita just to make us ready to be unafraid to surrender to Him. He could say right at the beginning to Arjuna, Mamekam Sharanam Raja. Okay, finished. Do it. There's no need for the Bhagavad Gita. And of course for pure devotees, there is no need for Bhagavad Gita. But for us, we need to hear again and again. It may take many lives to get free from this attachment, the false belief that holding on to the things which cause us fear and misery will actually make us happy. It may take many lifetimes to get rid of that. We can do it in one life, in this short life, if we use it properly. If we take one step toward Krishna, it takes 100 steps towards us. We need to take the step, and then Krishna will help us to make more steps. It's a matter of hearing again and again and again. And sometimes people say, well, the Bhagavad Gita is repetitive, isn't it? Krishna seems to say the same thing again and again. Of course, he does it from somewhat different angles, but we need to hear it again and again. We're not the body. This body is the world of fear. Surrender to Krishna. Go beyond fear. Go to the land of love. In actual love, there's no fear. But then we go very high into love, then there's fear. Spiritual fear. So we find that Radha and Krishna are together and fearing that they'll separate. That is the highest level of spiritual consciousness. But that is in Vrindavan. This is VIshnusahasranama. Vita Bhaya is Vishnu. Krishna has spiritual fear. But that's not understandable. It's not understandable as long as we have material attachment which causes fear. Therefore we're advised not to jump too quickly into trying to understand the intimate pastimes of Krishna in Vrindavan, as long as we're trying to enjoy this world, as long as we're attached to it. But we should now cultivate this understanding. It's easy to understand with the mind, with the intelligence, that nothing in this world will remain forever, so we shouldn't cling on to it. Everything will be taken away from us at the time of death. But that everything we do in Krishna consciousness is a permanent accretion. It's a permanent deposit in our spiritual bank balance. Even the slightest effort helps us to become fearless. Swabhamapyasya dharmasya jayate mahato bhayat. Even a little advancement in Krishna consciousness can save us from the greatest fear, which is the fear of degrading into lower forms of life. And Krishna promises that one who takes up his devotional service will never perish. He tells Arjuna, you declare it, Name bhakta pranashyati, my devotee is not destroyed. Often devotees ask, how can we become sincere? How can we become dedicated? How can we have a taste for the holy names? And my generic answer to this kind of question is, see the quality, see someone who has this quality and associate with them or try to follow them. So if we want to be fearless, what should we do? Take shelter of Vita Bhaya, Krishna. How do we do that? Take shelter of a devotee who is fully sheltered by Krishna, and then we also become fearless by following him. And the great example we have, of course, is Srila Prabhupada, who went to the West world. He'd never been outside India. We can't imagine what that means in our modern world, where people are flying here and there, driving here and there. At that time, most of the people in the world, including in India, had not been beyond their village, hardly. Maybe for a pilgrimage, once in their life. People didn't go on pilgrimage very often. Once in their life they'd walk on pilgrimage to a holy place, and then come back to their village. There was no, it was like going to the unknown. No help, no money. If you have some money, you think, I'm safe. People, when they get no money, they become very afraid. And no food, I can't pay my rent, I'll be thrown out of my house. Become homeless. People become very afraid. When money means security, right? People think, I have to have money. Here you don't have so much. You have a socialistic state, I guess, in Germany. But in America, people are very afraid. And they should be, because you don't have money. In old age, you're literally on the street. And you see people, they're living homeless. So many people. People are very... You can have a good job paying lots of money, and then all of a sudden the job is finished, your house payments are finished, and you find people homeless in America, living under bridges, who they were earning $100,000 a year, just short time ago. So people are very afraid. You don't have money, you're in trouble. And Srila Prabhupada was fearless. He had one contact, what they were like. When he found out this meat eater, but he went, no money, no institutional support, didn't know what kind of place he was going to. The captain of the ship said that when Srila Prabhupada got down, of course there is something in folklore that he said that I didn't know whether to look right or look left. But the captain of the ship said he wanted to accompany Srila Prabhupada to help him through customs and everything. He said no. He just went. That was in New York. He just went. Left. He knew now he's on his own, but he knew I was never on my own because Krishna is with me. My spiritual master is with me. He brought with him some kind of grains, I guess something like muesli or something, because he thought he wouldn't even be able to get vegetarian food in America. He was pleasantly surprised that vegetarian food is available. He had no source of income. He had books which he planned to sell, but there was no guarantee of that. He had faith. Faith brings fearlessness. Heart attacks on the boat. Then he had some fear that my mission could not be fulfilled. But Krishna came. We just sung Dashavata Stotram. Krishna came in a dream in 10 forms, rowing the boat. Krishna was rowing his boat. Srila Prabhupada wrote in his purport to Bhagavatam, Canto 3, Chapter 21, Text 31, to award fearlessness to the common man is the greatest act of charity. So Srila Prabhupada, he was Abhaycharan. He gave shelter at the lotus feet of he who is without fear, Vita Bhaya, to whoever was willing to take that shelter. Srila Prabhupada extended that. He extended the shelter of Krishna's lotus feet by giving the shelter of his own fearless lotus feet. Okay, I'll just speak a little more. And tomorrow I plan to continue speaking on this in the morning talk. Okay, how can we get free of fear? The general point is to take shelter of Krishna, who is without fear. How to do that, Krishna explains the practical methods for doing that. One practical method is to chant the names of Krishna. The point of becoming fearless, we find this again and again in Bhagavatam. There's a well-known verse in the second canto, Etan nirvidyamananam ichchatam akuto bhayam yoginam nripa nirnitam harer namanu kirtanam. Shukadev says, how to become fearless. O king, constant chanting of the holy name of the Lord after the ways of the great authorities. This Namanu, Hare Namanu Kirtanam. Anu Kirtan means, Anu, the prefix, can mean constant. It can also mean following. So it can mean constantly or can mean following. So Srila Prabhupada gives the translation, bringing out both points. O king, constant chanting of the holy name of the Lord after the ways of the great authorities is the doubtless and fearless way of success for all, including those who are free from all material desires, those who are desirous of all material enjoyment, and also those who are self-satisfied by dint of transcendental knowledge. Srimad Bhagavatam awards fearlessness. Yasyang Vaishruyamanayam Krishne Paramapurushe Bhaktirut Padyate Pungsa Shoka Moha Bhayapaha. By Srila Prabhupada's translation, simply by giving oral reception to this Vedic literature, the feeling for loving devotional service to Lord Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, sprouts up at once to extinguish the fire of lamentation, illusion, and fearfulness. So bhakti gives fearlessness, and by hearing Bhagavatam, that will awaken bhakti. So there's a good program to hear Bhagavatam repeatedly, as Srila Prabhupada instituted that in ISKCON temples. Then, meditating on Krishna's form. This is a verse from the 7th canto of Bhagavatam. Etad vapus te bhagavan dhyayataf paramatmanaha sarvato goptri santrasan mrityor api jighangsata. My dear Lord, O Supreme Personality of Godhead, you are the Supreme Soul. If one meditates upon your transcendental body, you naturally protect him from all sources of fear, even the imminent danger of death. So that's particularly apt to state this here in the temple of Nrsimhadev, who awards fearlessness. This temple was established here, near to the border of the Iron Curtain in those days, near to the border of Czechoslovakia, which is the beginning of that fearful region beyond the Iron Curtain, the source of fear. It used to be, even saying that, especially USSR, but then even Czechoslovakia. Nowadays, Czech and Slovakia, nothing to fear, but in those days, to go to those countries was a great act of bravery. Devotees were going. It was a great act of bravery. I remember first time I went to Russia, still in the communist time, and this it wasn't advertised to all the devotees. We want to keep it secret, but one Mataji who had a business had given some, because we didn't have we didn't have anything to show materially. We didn't have any bank accounts or any National Health Service cards. So she had a business, so she certified us, and then we got our visas. And just as we were leaving, I saw the look on her face. It was like, she was going to USSR. So it was a great, and that's why this temple was established here, just near to the border of the Iron Curtain, because devotees were going behind the Iron Curtain. It was a very fearful thing, and Nrsimhadev was established here to protect. That was the idea. So we can meditate on him. Fear didn't go away with the collapse of the Soviet Union. Serve devotees, that's one way to get free from fear. As stated in Bhagavatam 6th canto, 1st chapter, text 17. Sadri chino he ayam loke pantak shemo kuto bhayaha. Again, akuto bhayaha, same word. Sushila sadhavo yatra narayana parayanaha. The path followed by pure devotees who are well behaved and fully endowed with the best qualifications is certainly the most auspicious path in this material world. It is free from fear, and it is authorized by the Shastras. So the easiest method for all of us is chanting the holy names of Krishna. By this chanting, if we're really chanting, we can live in Vaikuntha, even here in this world. Vaikuntha, the place where there's no anxiety, no fear. Again, a great example of that is Srila Prabhupada. Historically, Haridas Thakur fearlessly, when he was brought before the Muslim ruler, who he knew could just take his life just like that, and was likely to, as in Islam up to the present day, it is considered proper to kill apostates. And that was certainly expected. So Haridas Thakur was brought before the Muslim magistrate, an apostate from Islam, fearless. So he was sent to be killed. Beaten in 22 marketplaces is a method of, it's actually meant to be a method of execution, but just to make a show of him. What's the word for that? Make an example of him, so that others wouldn't follow in his wicked footsteps of chanting the Hare Krishna mantra. Other Muslims wouldn't do so. But he was fearless. And when the people beating him said, why don't you, we're in trouble, we're supposed to kill you, but you're not dying, you just keep on chanting Hare Krishna. And then Haridas said, oh, okay, I'll die. So then he died, made a show of dying. And then the order from the Muslim ruler was throw his body in the Ganga, because the Muslims, they have the idea that whatever is considered most pious in quote-unquote Hinduism is just the opposite. So they thought if you throw his body in the Ganga, then surely he'll go to hell. So throw his body in the Ganga. So they threw his body in the Ganga, and Haridas dead. When he was out of sight, he came back to life, went to the other side, and went to Advaita Acharya's place after floating down the Ganga. Fearless, chanting the holy names. Hare Krishna. I'll finish there. Krishna willing, we'll continue tomorrow, discussing he who is free from fear and who can therefore make us free from fear. Hare Krishna. Vancha kalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhubhyo vicha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Dante nitaya churnakang padayo nipatya kritvacha kakushatam etad aham bravimi. Hey sadhava sakala eva vihaya durad gauranga chandra charane kurute anuragaha. Parivadatu jano yata tata pa nanumakaro namayang vicharayama. Hari rasa madhira madati mata bhuvi vilokta manartama nirvishna. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
His Holiness Bhakti Vikas Swami ki